I'd like to dedicate this year Lilui Nishmas Chaya Adira Chana Bas Shoshana, a student of mine who's Nifteret Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and for Refuah Shlema for her daughter Rachel Adira Chana, that she should have Refuah Nefesh, Refuah Haguf, and be able to be a tremendous nachas to the entire family. I'd like to speak about the whole concept of Kever, which is found in Parshat Vayishlach. The Torah tells us that in source number 1, they journeyed from Beit El, and there was still a stretch of land to go to Efrat. Rachel Imenu went into labor and gave birth to a boy. She calls the son Ben Oni, the son of my affliction. And Yaakov Avinu changes his name to Binyamin, the son of my right one, the son of my strength. And we know Rachel Imenu dies in childbirth and was buried on the road to Efrat, which is Beit Lechem. And Yaakov Avinu set up a monument over a grave. It is the monument of Kever Rachel until today. And a very interesting question that is the overall overarching question I'd like to deal with in Mirz Hashem today is, first and foremost, why is it that Rachel Imenu is buried Baderech on the way? Why is it that she's not buried in Maris Mechpelah? And the famous answer, which is offered by Rashi in Parshat Vayechi, when Yaakov Avinu tells Yosef that I know you may be upset with me that I buried your mother on the way and not in Maris Mechpelah. So there Rashi brings a very famous medrash that when the Jewish people are going to go into exile, they'll be able to pass by her grave and they'll be able to daven there, and Rachel Imenu will be able to implore Kadosh Baruch Hu on their behalf, quoting the pasuk in Yirmiyah, which we discussed at length last year, of Mini kolech mi bechi ve'nayach medima. Rachel Imenu, stop from weeping, stop from crying over your children, because indeed your prayers are heard and your children will return back to their borders. So Chazal seem to say that the reason that Rachel Imenu is buried along the way was in order for A, the children to daven there, and B, for her to daven for her children, for them to return to Eretz Yisrael. The fascinating thing about this Kever Rachel is that not only is this idea of her being buried and the focus of her burial found in our Parsha, it's really alluded to as well in 2 other Midrashei Chazal in Parshat Vayetze. The first is in source number 4a, that when Yaakov Avinu comes to Haran and he's at the well, and he's asking the people there, do you know Lavan? And they say yes. And the Torah tells us, and it was when Yaakov saw Rachel, daughter of Lavan, his mother's brother, and the flock of Lavan, his mother's brother, because he had seen that Rachel was a shepherdess coming with the sheep. When he sees this, he rolls the stone off the well, he kisses Rachel, and here's the interesting phrase, Vayisad kolo vayef, and he raised his voice and wept. And our rabbis are troubled by this expression. Why is he crying when he meets Rachel? And the terminology here is a very fascinating term. Vayisad kolo, he lifts up his voice. It's not just crying. It seems to be a very intense weeping. And Rashi gives 2 interpretations found in source B. Yaakov wept because he foresaw that Rachel would not be buried with him in the cave of Machpelah. So as soon as Yaakov meets Rachel, which is a very bizarre medrash, what is he thinking about? He's just meeting her. He's thinking about the time she's going to die and be buried, that he wouldn't be buried with her, that she wouldn't be buried in Maris Machpelah. And obviously we have to ask ourselves, why is Yaakov Avinu thinking about this the first time he meets her? And the second interpretation Rashi gives is he's crying because he has no gifts to give her, because Eliphaz, his nephew, overcame him and stole all of his possessions, and Ani Chashuv Kamed, and thereby fulfilling the wish of his father, instead of killing Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov said to him, if you take all my possessions, It's as if you killed me. He came empty-handed to Haran, and he was weeping that he didn't, like Eliezer, have any gifts, any jewelry to give to Rachel, which is also very strange. For that, Vayisad kalo vayech, he's lifting up his voice and crying, and these two interpretations seems to be so distant from each other. How could Rashi possibly bring them in the same at the same time? And obviously, there's a lot to learn. We're just going to examine a bit briefly this question. The other place in Parshat Vayetze that we find about, hinted at, Rachel's burial is found in the story of the Judaim, which we spoke about again last week. When Leah said, "You want my husband as well as the Judaim," and Rachel Imenu in 5a said, "Therefore he shall lie with you tonight in return for your son's Judaim." And on this, Rashi brings down in 5b that Rachel and Leah each had their own rooms, and Yaakov alternated between them. That night, Yaakov Avinu was to be with Rachel.